and welcome to Katie's Kitchen, episode number 4. Today we are going to be making some chicken and macaroni casserole. I had a little bit of an irritating day at the office today, so I'm going to make something that makes me happy, which is macaroni and cheese. But I'm skipping the crafts, so healthy adjacent. Adding broccoli, so we're good there. The tools that, it wasn't so much irritating at work that there are people, it's just that this is day 3 without any soda, and I didn't have any caffeine today, and so I'm just irritable.
How's the other half of your giving up caffeine but not doing another thing going?
Going well.
What's that you have next to you?
Well, the wine. Yeah, well, you know what? A glass of wine here and there isn't bad for you.
That's true.
So the tools that we'll be using today are a cutting board. I'll be using my handy dandy scale, a colander, a couple of kitchen knives. Jeremy told me that this is not for chopping but for slicing, so I got out a chopping knife.
Better.
Chopping knife. And then also a cheese grater, as well as just a pot, a skillet, and then a Foreman grill. You don't have to have a Foreman grill, but some way to cook the chicken. And then eventually I'll need Jeremy to get the casserole dish from the top.
I get that out.
There. So I just looked this up online. I'm adding the broccoli to it. It doesn't normally call for it in the recipe. But it comes from food.com.
What do you think of our last recipe, by the way?
Oh yeah, the last recipe was really, really good. If you'll recall, it was the honey glazed pork tenderloin. It was super good. The only thing that I would suggest if you are planning on making it is to make sure that you definitely cover the pan with aluminum foil and get it all the way down to the edges, and then just keep an eye on it, because one of the problems that we had is it overflowed a little bit and almost ruined our pan because it got under the aluminum foil because I didn't have it all the way to the edge. And then also it then got into the oven, and so now our oven smells like burnt honey. And we tried to clean it up as best as we could, but like it got under the thing and it's a smell.
I would argue that in the future we would probably use, it's hard to get out, but a high-sided pan instead of a cookie sheet.
A high-sided pan, that would also work, and then you could definitely make sure that it wouldn't overflow into your oven. You wouldn't have to keep so much an eye on it, and then if you covered it with aluminum foil, it'd be really good. So I'm just going to cook the broccoli very similar to how we cooked the broccoli with our beef and noodle recipe, where I'm just going to throw it into the noodles when the noodles are almost done. I just grabbed 2 stalks from the store because that's how they came, and the recipe doesn't call for any broccoli, but I'm trying to get like 1 vegetable in. It does call for half an onion. Oh, I probably should list out the ingredients real quick. We got half a chopped onion, 3 tablespoons of butter or margarine. I prefer butter just because I think it tastes better and is actual food as opposed to completely man-made. We got 2 cans of cream of chicken soup, 2 cups of shredded cheese divided. That means we'll use half at one point and then the other half later. So it's just saying don't clump it all together. 1 cup of milk, 3.5 cups of chopped cooked chicken. I didn't know how much 3.5 cups of cooked chicken is, so I just got 1.25 pounds-ish. And then 2.5 cups of cooked macaroni. I had to look up online how much cooked macaroni. See, this is why then I got this knife out for the onion. I was like, this is way more difficult than it normally is. But I looked up online, and there was a website that was like pastayields.com or something to that effect, and about 5 ounces is about 2.5 cups cooked. And then I also broke it down for like how big the pasta was and stuff like that. But we're just making basic elbow macaroni noodles. So we're just gonna take the onion. We're gonna take the 3 tablespoons of butter, which actually sounds like a lot of butter to me. I'm probably just gonna take 1 tablespoon. I think it's called a pat.
Yeah, that is another name for it.
So I'm just going to take a pat of butter and then throw it in there and let that heat. You'll notice I'm cooking my vegetables first, or chopping my vegetables first, is because with the chicken I want to make sure that I don't use it again after that's already handled. So while that's heating up real quick, I'm just going to rinse this. Which last time this was like the super boring part of the episode, so I'm just going to talk about how boring it was.
Well, I can interject that those of you that have already watched the first 3 videos, I am working on adding like titles and things. So at some point, you will notice those in the new videos. They will also exist for the old videos, but you will probably have already watched them. So.
The other thing, if you're wondering about calorie count, is it claims that the calories in here weren't so bad. It was only like 400 and some calories for the meal. 412, and half of those calories are from fat. So if you're trying to limit your fat.
200 fat calories?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's cheese.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
With some cheese.
And then some cheese.
And then some cheese.
I would think the chicken and the vegetables would counteract some of that. But.
Yeah, that's the other 200 calories. Anyway.
Okay. Fair.
I have cats, so then I just opened this cheese and then there was cat hair on it.
Already.
That's how you know you're doing good. So anyway, my butter is getting melted. I'm using a smaller pan than I necessarily would need to. You could always use a bigger one. But like I said before, it's a good test. It didn't make a snapping sound, so it's not quite ready yet. So we'll just kind of wait on that. But yeah, the pork was really, really good.
I really like the pork.
Especially with the asparagus.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it went really, really well together. And then the roll was also really good. We have leftovers of those rolls, so I'll plan on using them at some other point. But yeah, tonight I was like, we're gonna make macaroni and cheese. It's gonna be amazing.
And I will say, as a guy, I ate 2 servings of the pork, and it was a pretty perfect serving for me.
So if you were a guy watching this, instead of 4 servings, you would then just have 2 servings.
Probably.
So you would have, your dinner and then your leftover. Or if you're a member of a family, you wouldn't have any leftovers.
Right.
In which case you'd be cooking twice as often, or you could just cook
twice as much.
I'm
assuming we won't fill our giant casserole dish. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
We'll find out.
It says 2.5 quart casserole.
I don't know how big that one is.
I have no clue.
It might say on the bottom.
I don't know.
Alright, fair enough.
So, there we go. Now it's ready. So I'm just going to dump those in. Slowly, so I don't dump it all over the stove and make even more of a smell.
The honey smells kind of nice, actually. I'm not saying you should plan on it, but the honey doesn't smell terrible in the house.
I'm going to stick the cheese in here real quick while I weigh out my noodles. Oh, they also call for Ritz crackers, or snack crackers.
Yeah.
It's the fancy kind.
Store-bought, gotta love it. Store brand, I should say.
So I'm just going to measure out 5 ounces. And then dump that in. Return my cheese to its place. Stir real quick. Probably turn down the heat.
So it called for 3 tablespoons just for that onion?
Just for the onion.
That does seem like a lot of butter.
It seemed like a lot of butter.
I would agree.
Okay, so then how we're going to cook the chicken, because it doesn't really say how they want you to cook it, they just say cooked chicken that's cubed, is I'm just going to throw it on the Foreman grill. Kind of, I'm not going to say a secret because it's not that secret, but a way to make it cook a little bit faster on the Foreman is just to butterfly it. Actually, use this one. So I'm just going to grab it and then slice it like this, lengthwise. So it's not as thick, and that way it'll cook a lot faster for me. And I'm going to throw it on there. My Foreman is not very big, so I have to do the 2 breaths at different times.
Yeah, it'll hold 2 breasts if they're not butterflied, but then it doesn't cook, like you wind up not cooking all the way through quite right. And
well, it just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I got chicken breast, but it really just calls for chicken. So if you had leftover chicken or if you liked darker meat, you could always go that way as well. Jeremy really likes breasts.
yeah, I do.
Because boobs.
Because boobs.
The other thing is
Do we need to mark this channel like not child appropriate?
it's child appropriate. I was explaining the joke for the children.
Ah, okay.
But I was going to say the other thing is they're a lot easier to work with if you're going to cube something.
Yes.
Whereas with wings or legs or something, it wouldn't really be cubed chicken so much as shredded chicken, which I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Probably not, although it can be more... Tearing the chicken like that can be a little more work. If you like the dark meat, you probably don't care, but...
I'm going to throw this away because it's actually old. Not throw it away, obviously. That would be very wasteful.
That would be very wasteful.
So we'll just go over costs real quick. The onion I had laying around, so we didn't have to spend any more costs on that. I thought I had some cream of chicken soup, but I wasn't sure, so I went ahead and bought that. But altogether, it cost me about $16.50 for the ingredients, and it says it makes about 8 servings. So you're looking at about $2 a meal, which is really good.
Or $4 for a guy serving, maybe.
Or $4 for a guy serving.
Still really good.
The other thing is, if you want to add more meat, then your cost will go up. If you take away the broccoli, your cost will go down. The other thing that's kind of a big deal is the cheese I bought. I bought an aged smoked cheese.
Ooh.
And only half a pound of it. So usually a pound of cheese, just normal cheddar, will run you about $5 a pound, but this is going to be $5 for the half pound, so $10 a pound. So instead of paying, $5 there, you would pay $2.50, $3. So a bunch of little different ways that you can save money.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start using a fork. To start handling the chicken. And I just flipped it over there because of the way the foreman is shaped. It doesn't always cook evenly. It's like slanted and stuff, and it's supposed to. And
If you don't have a George Foreman, you can definitely use a skillet. I really like the way George Foreman cooks chicken personally, but you could totally use a skillet.
you could also, for what it's worth, boil your chicken.
I've never liked that, but yeah, I know people do.
You can also bake it
I feel like for this recipe, you wouldn't want to bake it because I would dry it out.
even more, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're already going to bake it.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, dark meat might be really good for this recipe just because it'll stay a lot juicier.
That is true.
But you know what else. But yeah, I really like and then the blueberries, those have been a really good breakfast. I really liked it.
I haven't gotten to try it yet.
I've been having an egg with it. Like I mentioned a couple episodes ago, they're a little bit bland where the blueberries aren't, but I just make sure every bite has a blueberry. Well, the blueberries, and I got in a fight this morning. I spilled it on my shirt, and then I spilled it on my desk. And it was like, oh my god, blueberries, today you are not my friend.
It was a hard day for Katie.
It was a hard day for Katie.
Cue sip of wine.
And then I went to the store to buy the groceries, and then after I was done shopping, I was like, oh right, the dogs. Like I almost came home and just like went about my day without any dogs here. And it was like, which I guess wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but still.
I feel like the place where we dropped the dogs off might have been upset about it.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have liked that too much.
Probably not.
Can I put the baked chicken where the...
No.
Damn it. I mean, dang
You can
it.
put it on the wooden one you've got behind the foreman if you want.
Okay.
Or on a plate, either one.
I was told I wasn't allowed to use this one.
Not for things like raw chicken. Raw meat in general I try to keep off of a wood cutting board. Just I'm a little neurotic about it.
So, I'm just going to cut into the chicken that's on the foreman real quick to make sure that it's done, but it should be. It has got a little bit of time left. We'll close that back down. I'm going to continue waiting. I thought about just starting where the recipe starts with the cooked chicken already done and the noodles already cooked, but then I thought, well, it's not, like, there's a lot of assumptions and I'm supposed to be trying to help people learn. But in the meantime, what we can be doing is we can be shredding our cheese. So you can get pre-shredded cheese and it will run you about $2.50, $3 a bag. However, if you are snotty like Jeremy and me, then you have to shred your own cheese.
The word is cultured.
Cultured.
Classy.
Classy. So I would recommend, I really like this one because it gives me a bunch of multiple options and then I don't have to like I don't know. I really like this cheese grater, and then you just, grate cheese. I'll be here for a while because I need the entire block.
Oh, really? We need that much? Do you need me to take over while you do other things?
No.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for that to cook and waiting for that to cook. So I'm grating cheese. I guess I could have done this off camera, but then what would I be doing now?
I don't know.
It's actually going really fast because this is a really soft cheese.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make your own macaroni and cheese, it's a really good opportunity to take the kinds of cheese that you like to stick in there as opposed to just cheddar cheese like I got the smoked. But you could put Gouda, you could put pepper jack, you could put, I don't know, what other kind of cheeses are there that would be good?
I guess I don't know. I haven't tried the finished recipe, but theoretically feta could be good if you're into feta cheese. You're not, but it could be good. Colby Jack.
Colby Jack. I don't know, any kind of cheese that you're like, man, you know what kind of cheese I really like? X. And you could stick it in here. I wanted to do a salmon recipe, but the kind of salmon that I really like is grilled, and it's not quite grilling season yet.
Not quite. At some point we'll do a grilling with Jeremy.
We'll do a grilling with Jeremy. Jeremy is in charge of all grill-related tasks.
We could do a smoked salmon recipe before grilling season.
We could do a smoked salmon. Just a second. This stuff is going to be closer to done at the very least. So when I'm checking, all I'm doing is just cutting into a thick part of the meat and then opening it up and making sure that it's not clear in there.
Yep. You don't have to be white all the way through. A plate might have made your life easier.
You know what? It will make my life easier. That's the point of fact. So there's that one. That's all ready. And then I'll grab a second fork for this one, although I think I touched that fork with it anyway. But shh, don't tell Jeremy.
A single fork's not a big deal. You just don't want to be using a whole cutting surface that's got uncooked chicken on it. And there are a lot of people that don't worry about those things either. In fact, before you met me, I guarantee you didn't worry about that knowing you.
Well, but I'm a really not phobic person.
Yeah, the opposite of a germaphobe, that is true.
The opposite of a germaphobe.
You just threw all your knives that you need one of into the sink.
I will have to get another knife because those have all touched raw chicken.
Not the Santoku knife, the...
Oh, that's alright. We'll just get another knife.
Fair enough. You have several.
So I'm going to grab this knife. And all I'm going to do is take my fork and cut it into cubes and or bite-sized pieces, however you like it. That'll be easy.
You didn't finish off the cheese.
Yeah, I will. I'll get to that.
There's all these incomplete steps.
Yeah, I think it's better if you just do things like
Halvesies.
halvesies the entire thing.
Three-quarter.
3/4, one might say, and then just like count on somebody else to finish it up. That's really when you know that you've hit your stride. You're like, well, I got this started. You should be able to figure it out from here. Kind of like with the pork recipe, where it's like, well, you guys should be able to figure it out from here.
And then it turned out that we'd spilled the honey all over our oven.
Yeah, that's all right though. These things happen.
They do.
And if you wait until the next episode for us to tell you about these things,
You get to experience too.
you get to avoid them. If you do it right away, then obviously you might.
I am curious if anyone's made any of these recipes yet. I know a few people have definitely watched the videos.
Yeah, well, that brings me to another point. A lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, like 2 people have showed interest in co-hosting, and then I asked somebody if they would be interested in co-hosting, and they were like, and I was like, well, you don't have to if you don't want to. And she was like, will we rewind? I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay. But, like, I think it would be kind of fun to have people on and share their different recipes that they really like. Alternatively, I think it would be fun if people sent in, like, tips. They had, like, one really good tip that I got from somebody when I mentioned I was getting a pop is there, like, what I do is she gets sparkling water and mixes it with juice. And that way she still gets the carbonation and she still gets the sugar from the juice, but it's not quite so bad, and she can kind of pick whichever one she wants, and it's not as sweet. Because we got, like, the sparkling ice things.
Yeah, I can show one if you want.
Which are tasty.
Or not.
I know. I mean, the brand is sparkling ice.
Yeah.
And they're really tasty, but the problem with it is I don't know that they're any better for you than diet soda.
I honestly don't know.
They seem to have a lot of fake sugars in them, and all of that stuff. So once the cheese gets down to like a point where you're like, I'm gonna cut myself if I grate any further, just kind of tear it up. Just stick it in there. And then you should have nice grated cheese.
That is a nice bowl of cheese.
It is a nice
I'm
bowl
gonna
of cheese.
sample a little bit just to help you out. That's how I help.
I drop it all over myself.
Oh, that's really good cheese. Everyone watching this video should be jealous of the delicious cheese.
It is really good cheese. So as you can tell, I dumped my broccoli in just based off the fact that it looked to me like the noodles were about ready to be cooked. Actually, I again dropped my broccoli in late, but
Like you do.
life. All right, so let's make sure that we have everything else that we need. So, oh, you should use a big skillet, and I'll tell you why. Because you can put other stuff in there. And by other stuff, I mean substantial other stuff. So as opposed, like you can have the skillet like this one, where it has kind of a lipped edge, or this one where it's got a nice side to it. And I'm going to use the one with a nice side. And dump my onion in there.
Reading ahead in recipes is a strong point of yours, I've noticed.
Oh my gosh, I read one recipe once where you couldn't not read ahead and complete the recipe because like substantial steps that you should do in the beginning were in the later part of the recipe. And I did not successfully complete that recipe. And anyway, so one of the things that I forgot to take out first was my milk. And then the other thing that's kind of important to know is that you should have liquid measuring cups versus dry measuring cups, and they do measure differently. So I think it's important to have both, but I mean, it's not that different. Like if you're not that concerned, then you can probably get away with it. The other thing is, remember that perspective is the thing. So as you can tell, I'm bending down to look to see where my 8 ounces is so that I can get 1 cup. If you look at it from above, you're not going to give yourself enough milk or whatever liquid you happen to be doing. So anyway, once our onions are done, it says to stir in chicken and macaroni and adjust taste seasoning.
It smells like your chicken might need to come off the foreman.
Okay, just a second. I skipped 2 steps. So I'm going to add in the soup and then 1.5 cups of soup.
Do you need me to help with like the chicken or something?
No, I got it.
Okay.
You know. Oh, I remember I have a plate for this sort of stuff. So anyway, I also find that it's best to clean the formin right away because then it doesn't stick on there.
That's true. So I'll come in and I'll take care of that for you.
I don't know why he gets under the camera like that.
I don't know. I feel like it's very jarring when someone walks right in front of the camera.
I suppose that's true. I don't know. It's not like I watch these.
You watch them all with me.
Oh, my joke was funnier though. So anyway, again, just cutting it. Or you can, I guess you can't tell from that far away, but there's no pink in the chicken, which is not what you want. Or, well, you don't want any pink, so if the chicken is cooked the way you want.
Once I finish this up, I'll bring the camera over a little closer.
Ooh. So anyway, I am just using it. Like I said, some of these are a little bit big, so I'm just going back and cut. There's my spoon. So it looks like the noodles are probably done, so I'm going to take them off.
George from that side.
I'm going to use my colander again.
I'll come over and I'm gonna get a close up of the chicken for you. So that's the chicken, and hopefully you can tell that it's white all the way through and not clear.
Okay. And then once that's drained, I'm just going to stick it back on there until I need it. But after you have your macaroni, your chicken, your onions are cooked, we're going to add in soup and 1.5 cups of cheese. Something else that's really good, by the way, as we're talking about it, I assume we're talking about it, because I really like creamy mushroom soup. I don't know if that would go in this particular recipe, but in general it's just good. A really good, easy recipe of that involves chicken is just cooking some noodles and some cream of mushrooms and some chicken and throwing it all together, and it makes something really tasty. Jeremy doesn't like mushrooms, so I don't get to eat it that often.
No.
Only when he goes out of town.
That's true.
So.
Usually, if there was a recipe that calls for cream of mushroom and I'm around, we will substitute cream of chicken and call it good enough.
Yeah. I think that he's crazy because cream of mushroom doesn't taste like mushrooms. I think it's all psychological, probably.
Mushrooms are gross, is the thing.
They aren't gross.
I feel like they are.
So anyway, I'm just putting in the thing. And then I'm actually going to use a half measuring cup to start off with, as opposed to a full measuring cup, because that way I know that 1.5 cups is 3 half cups, and I can wash less dishes, which I'm all about. So I'm going to dump that in there as well.
Did we shred way more cheese than we needed?
Well, it's
I was just curious.
It's supposed to be 2 cups, so
I was just curious.
ish. If we have more cheese.
It looks like we might have been able to get away with what you said you bought, a half a pound?
Mm-hmm.
We might have been able to get away with a 1/4 pound, but I think we might have been a little short.
Yeah.
And this way there's more cheese, which is delicious.
Which is delicious. So anyway, this is just going to heat up, I think, and melt the cheese. It doesn't really say. It just says add in soup and 1.5 cups cheese and then gradually stir in milk. Okay, and then cook in medium heat until cheese melts. So there you go. So after that's kind of all mixed together, I'm just going to take my cup of milk and put it in there. It says gradually, so...
I think it's the only time I've ever seen you add something gradually to a recipe.
Usually I just dump it in. The reason for this particular one, and cream mushroom has the same kind of issue, is if you dump it all in at once, it's kind of hard to get the creamy soup to absorb it. But you can get it too. If you do gradually, then it seems like it's easier. I don't know that it's actually easier, or if it just seems that way.
I don't know.
So, but we'll do gradually, because that's what the recipe says. And I am real good at reading the recipe.
I noticed that. Hey, you only skipped 2 out of how many steps?
Like 5 steps. So.
That's a lot out of 5.
It's only, I still got a 60%. Isn't 60% passing?
I guess it depends on what kind of class you're taking.
Also, I would have noticed eventually that I had spare ingredients for some reason.
Would it have been too late to do anything about it?
Probably not. I mean, it has an order for which to put the ingredients in, but sometimes you can just throw them all in at the same time, and I don't really see the purpose of having any sort of order. I'm sure that somebody is pulling their hair out at that
Right
statement.
now, I was gonna say.
But, so then I'm just gonna get the rest of the milk in there.
We have at least one friend. I don't know if he's watching any of these yet, but he was trained as a chef, and I'm sure if he ever watches these videos, he's going to instantly not be our friend anymore because it will make him crazy.
Is that Nathan?
It is Nathan.
He's gonna co-host. He already agreed to it. I texted him. I said, "Do you want to co-host with me?" Assuming that he read all my thoughts at all times, and he was like, "Sure." And I was like, "Do you want to pick a recipe or should I?" And then he sent me a picture. He's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And I was like, "Of course you don't, because you're not a mind reader." But he'll be on here at least one time.
I think you had technically posted it to your Facebook feed by then.
Yeah, but it was like during the day, and he worked.
That is true. He was probably working.
I don't know. He might have blocked me as like a person.
Unfollow.
She posts a lot of dog pictures. I'm not gonna follow her anymore.
He's not wrong.
Dog pictures and BuzzFeed things. You're welcome.
You love clickbait.
Okay, one, it's super entertaining. So, in case you're wondering what I'm doing with the heat, is it's been on medium to medium low, mostly medium low, and I'm just turning it up a little bit to medium. One of the things with creamier dishes is you kind of want to keep it moving, otherwise it will burn on the bottom. So just something to keep in mind is you don't want to just let it sit. So I'm just keeping gradual stir. It's the same thing as if you're making pudding. You don't just like stick the package in there together and walk away. You have to sit here and stir it for 15 minutes.
Never made pudding.
Oh, okay. You were giving me a weird look, and I was like, is that not how you make pudding? Because that's how I've been doing it since forever. And it's always turned out delicious, so I assumed I was doing it correctly.
I'm sure you're doing it right. I've just never made pudding.
So anyway, I'm going to stir in the chicken and the macaroni. In my case, there's also some broccoli in there that's going to get stirred in.
So you really did, the whole recipe goes in the skillet that you were going to put in a tiny skillet.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
Just checking.
Next time I'll know.
I'm not even sure that skillet's going to be big enough.
Well, it's the biggest skillet we have.
Is it?
It is.
Mm.
So it's
That's somewhat problematic.
It's not problematic. It'll work. So my noodles are sticking a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, something that Jeremy had suggested after the beef and noodle one is that if you add a little bit of olive oil to your noodles before you cook them, they are less likely to stick.
You add it to the water while you're bringing it to a boil.
Ah, well there you go. And then there's less likely to stick, which is a very good tip because I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
He also told me that his dad doesn't actually throw spaghetti on the walls.
I mean, he might have when he was like in college or something, but not in many, many years.
So, anyway. What I find with a lot of cooking is there's very rarely something that you can do that'll mess up the whole thing.
Aside from baking.
Aside from baking. Baking's a little bit different.
I feel like it's very easy to ruin the whole bakingness.
I don't remember what I was baking the one time, but it was the recipe where like there are instructions in the middle of the page that you really should have been at the beginning of the page. And it was like one of those cakes that fall flat or something. What are those called?
Molten cake? I mean, that's not what.
No.
Cakes that fall flat.
Like if you they're really fluffy, and if you make too much noise, they like get flat and hard.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I can't remember the name of it right now.
But anyway, it was one of those, and so I was just so distraught. I think
You got really upset as I recall.
I got really upset. It might not even been a cake. I don't remember what it was. I just remember Marshall was here and he came up the stairs at the wrong moment and I just like screamed at him.
Poor Marshall. He was just randomly visiting for like a day or two.
It's like, what? That's what he gets for waking up. If he had just stayed asleep, we wouldn't have this problem.
Hey, to be fair, if he was waking up, it was probably like noon.
It wasn't new. Like everyone else was sleeping. I'm sure I was just screaming at myself.
Ah, it was just early.
And with the pots and pans and everything, he probably woke up.
Yeah.
Maybe I was trying to make like an omelet. I don't know. Whatever it was a horrific experience.
It did not go well.
Yeah. So I'm just stirring it in very carefully since I'm at the top of my pot. And making sure that it all gets coated evenly. And then I think all I'm going to do after that is dump it in there. Let me just double check. And then transfer mixture into greased 2.5 quart casserole and sprinkle with cracker crumbs. So there's a couple ways to grease it. You can do it with Pam, which is what I'm going to do. You can take a stick of butter and rub it on there. That's another way to grease it. I also have Crisco, I guess, which we could use. But I think Pam will do just fine.
Oh, you moved further than my camera can follow. Great.
Oh, that's alright. They don't need to see me getting the Pam.
They won't appear behind the curtain, Katie.
There isn't much there. So anyway, that's all I did, and then it looks like we're going to transfer it, and then I'm going to put cracker crumbs on top of it. It calls for a 1/4 cup of cracker crumbs. To be honest, I'm not going to measure that. I'm just going to sprinkle crackers on top. Alright. So I already have the oven preheated. It smells really good, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get a shot over your shoulder here of what you're doing over there, because it's hard to see from over here.
I already have the oven preheated to 350, which is what you want.
Okay.
And then after I get my cracker crumbs on here, we're going to put it in for 30 minutes. And then sprinkle the rest of the cheese on top. And bake for 5 more minutes. And then it'll be ready to eat.
I don't think the camera can see right now.
That's alright.
You can see the casserole really well.
Well, that's good. So, like I said, it's a 1/4 cup technically of crackers. But all I'm going to do is, I feel like this is a very odd thing, is I'm going to just crackle them over the top without measuring. It seems a lot faster that way to me and a lot easier. And I don't see much benefit in doing it. So that was about 4 or 5 crackers. I'm going to put 2 more crackers just around the edges. And then there we go. So like 6 or 7 crackers and your golden,
There you go.
that's what it looks like. So we'll stick that in the oven for 30 minutes. And if you want to cut out, we'll come back in when we pull it out and then put the cheese on.
Sure, I can do that.
Welcome back. We had it in for 30 minutes. I took it out. I sprinkled the rest of the cheese on there. And I stuck it back in for another 5 minutes. So now all we have to do is pull it out, let it cool first, but I thought I'd give you a glimpse of what it looks like. So I think I mentioned before that my counters don't really care if there's something hot on top, but most people, you should put a hot pad there. Make sure you turn off the stove. Key, don't drop the thing in the dog's water.
That's usually not back there while we're filming.
Let's throw that in there. But anyway, this is kind of what you're looking for. You got, you can see it's bubbling around the edges, which is really good. You have your melted cheese on top along with your crackers. And so we just need to wait for it to cool for probably like 10 minutes and then we can serve it. And it'll be delicious and we'll let you know.